What's up, everybody? Host Jake Fowler here. Hope we're having a good day or good night or whenever you're listening to this. I hope it's great. If it's not, you made the right decision by putting this on because we're going to uplift you today. In all honesty, I have nothing prepared for this episode. Not a single thing. No guest, just me. And hopefully that's going to be enough, but we're going to riff our way through this one and we're going to see what happens. I haven't done a solo episode in a while, so I kind of wanted to do one. And also, after organizing a slew of guests, all of whom have been amazing, if that's correct grammar. Everyone's been great. And I just haven't booked anyone out this far. And so here we are. That being said, I am recording one with a guest next week. So today is Sunday the 14th? 16th. Sunday the 16th. So this is being recorded the day it'll get released, which is good. So next Sunday, we got a guest who's been on before, who, when we recorded their original episode, was one of my most favorite episodes that I've recorded thus far. And still one of my favorites, so I'm excited to have that person back on. And then we've got some more guests down the pipeline, so stick around in the next few weeks for some amazing guests and some great conversations. But in the meantime, we're going to talk about some things that I have on my mind as they come up in my brain. One of the things I was not prepared for was how aggressive this mustache was going to look just by itself. First of all, if you're if you're listening to this on Spotify, you might want to go on social media in the next couple days, or you might want to head over to YouTube and check out this lovely mustache that I'm rocking right now. It is actually Movember, as in M-O, instead of November, Movember, for men's health. There's a guy at work who is doing some sort of Movember challenge. And as a man who is pro-health, I figured it would make sense that I participate. And so as one of the criteria for participating in said challenge is growing a mustache for Mustache Movember. Get it? Coming together? But regardless, it is very aggressive now that I'm looking. I feel like I look like your stereotypical police officer. Rest my hands on my vest. Sir, do you have any idea how fast you were going? That's what I would sound like if I were a police officer. So there you have it. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please go do so. This past month, we jumped from like 20 subscribers to like 95 all in 1 month. So that's pretty big. That means I'm 1/10 of the way there to be able to show ads on my YouTube videos, which right now they're not showing. So if you want to watch them ad free, go ahead there now. But once they can show ads on my YouTube channel, then I can get a little bit of money from that ad revenue. So if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, and you haven't subscribed to my YouTube, go ahead real quick and head to the YouTube and subscribe. Fowler and friends, please help me get money. That would be awesome. So 1/10 of the way there. We're going to get there. That would be great. As far as what we got going on in life, it's Sunday, so it's fantasy football day. I mean, really that starts on Thursday. So fantasy really goes Thursday through Monday, since that's when football is. But I started off strong in fantasy, and now my team is so dreadful that it's just really pitiful to look at. I've got 3 players currently injured or out, and I've had at least 3 more that I've had to drop due to injuries. So we're looking pretty tough right now. Not gonna lie, but we will see what happens. Right now, I've got a 20% chance of winning this week. Anything can happen. That's the thing about fantasy. Anything can happen, but it's not looking too good. last year I won my fantasy, and that was hilarious because I know the least about football out of anyone in our entire league. And I was hoping to run it back this year, but it's not looking like it's going to happen. As long as we make it to the playoffs, though, you never know. Could be surprised. Jalen Hurts is my quarterback. So my team name is So Sexy It Hurts. And the profile photo is Prince Charming from Shrek 2 because he is sexy. So now you know about that, which is great. On men's health, we're going to circle back to that. I was trying to think about, things to talk about for this episode. And, some hot topics in the men's health department, as I see them, would just be one of the trends that I've noticed is, and I don't know how prominent this is because the algorithm just feeds you what you want to be fed, whether it's on YouTube or X or whatever. And so what I see in my algorithm obviously is not what you see in yours. So whenever myself or anyone speaks on trends, you kind of have to do some validation before speaking on them because you really just don't know how prevalent the trend actually is. So take what I'm going to say with a grain of salt, but I guess we can talk a little bit about the body standards for males and sort of the trend that has been going on for, well, I don't know how long it's been going on for. I've been aware of it for a few years now. So, and that trend being the, I guess, high standard to which they're held to. And which is kind of ironic because most people are out of shape. So how prevalent is this? I don't know. I would say it's more important to focus on people getting in shape than the standards that men are being held to. But one of the posts that I've seen come up a handful of times is, it's like from the perspective of a woman, and she's like, see guys, this is all we want. A little bit of hair on the chest, a little bit of muscle, nothing too crazy. And then it's a picture of Henry Cavill from Man of Steel, who plays Superman, in a scene where he is shirtless, taking laundry from a clothespin, from drying outside. And this could be a joke, obviously. If you look at the comments, they're all the most polarizing things on either side, so you really can't pay too much attention to that because they're just feeding you the polarizing slop at the top. But I have seen stuff like that come up a decent amount where, it's like all I want is basically for my man to have the body of Superman. And that is just the most uncommon thing imaginable for you to wish for your man to have. And so, it's kind of been a trend the past, I guess, 20 years for, especially thanks to superhero movies. And, not that there haven't been men who've gotten in shape for movies previously. You've got your Schwarzeneggers, your Stallones, your Jean-Claude Van Damme's, what's his name? Dolph Lundgren, Mickey Rourke, all those kind of 80s, 90s action heroes. Those guys were all in shape. But, Wesley Snipes. But now you've got the superhero movies where you've got someone like Kumail Nanjiani. If you don't know who he is, he was mostly a comic actor. He appeared in comedies. Skinny dude, kind of skinny fat. And he kind of blew up when he got cast in Marvel's Eternals, which not that many people saw post-COVID and didn't do very well commercially or critically. But I really like that movie. But he basically went from being someone who was skinny fat to someone who was just completely jacked and totally peeled. When I say peeled, I just mean like super low body fat percentage. Skin looks like it's tight to the body, that sort of thing. And, he was in his late 30s, early 40s. And, did he use exogenous hormones? There's a good chance. A lot of those guys definitely do and don't talk about it. But superhero movies have definitely kind of turned the male physique into something that is borderline unobtainable. You think about Wolverine, Hugh Jackman. If you ever see the movie The Wolverine or X-Men Days of Future Past, but you see him with his shirt off longer in the Wolverine. To achieve that look, he's got like six pack, his muscles are huge. Obviously, he works out a lot and eats a lot of food over a long period of time to put on that muscle and to achieve the physique that he did. So he worked really hard, undeniably so. But then in those scenes where his shirt is off, especially when he's sword fighting with this other character, he just is completely peeled, like so shredded. And if you do a little bit of research into the behind the scenes on that movie, to get that look, what he did and what a lot of these guys do is they do a water fast. And so they go 24 hours without water. So there's less water in the body. The muscles are more prominent because the skin is tighter to them. And this is not uncommon for bodybuilders as well. When they step on stage, they're usually dehydrated and full of carbs to really make their muscles pop. But anyways, Hugh Jackman would do like a 24-hour water fast and would have just like a raging headache while he's doing these intense fight scenes, all to achieve this incredible physique. I think even Robert Pattinson did it for his role as in a couple of his shirtless scenes as Batman, which he wasn't even that jacked for. So if I were him, I wouldn't have done that. But, one of the negative effects of doing a water fast, believe it or not, there are just a couple positive things about doing that, but you shouldn't do that unless you do a lot of research and seek advice from your doctor. But one of the negative side effects is it drops testosterone levels. And then obviously you're dehydrated and you can get a headache and motor function goes down because your brain is operating on a lower capacity due to the lack of water. And basically what's happening is a lot of guys are seeing this and they're setting that as the standard. And by the way, when I talk about this, that's not to say that there's not the same thing going on or similar things going on with female beauty standards. Obviously, that's been, a topic of much debate for a long time, especially 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. The don't eat much and just do cardio, which is now kind of gone, I think. I don't think anybody really prescribes to that unless they've been living under a rock for the past 10 to 15 years on the female side. But anyways, that's not to diminish any sort of body issues or body standards on the female side of things. But since it's Movember, we're talking men's health. One of the things that this sort of superhero genre has done is set the bar so high. I mean, think Hugh Jackman, Wolverine, Chris Evans, Captain America, Chris Hemsworth, Thor, The Rock. He was Black Adam, and he's also jacked in like everything that he does, obviously. Dave Bautista, Chris Pratt got jacked to play Star-Lord. Kumail Nanjiani, got jacked to play Icarus. I mean, the list goes on and on and on for guys who get cast as a role in a superhero movie, and they just have to put on a bunch of muscle and that sort of thing. I think one of the most notorious examples is Ben Affleck when he got cast as Batman, is sort of known for not having a good time. I think he was going through a hard time in his personal life regardless, but pretty known that he was doing some sort of steroid. And I think he went on Bill Maher and he was having a discussion with Bill Maher and Sam Harris about the religion of Islam, and got really frustrated, and he didn't have a meltdown or anything. It's just super nitpicky, but you could tell he just got really frustrated and kind of lost it for a bit and was unable to see the point that Bill Maher and Sam Harris were making. And people kind of blame that on the steroids that he was on. But anyways, these guys are basically encouraged by the studio to blast some gear and get in the best shape possible. And a lot of guys are looking at this growing up, myself included. I grew up in the height of the superhero boom. And, that's something that they want. That's something they want to achieve. And if they don't dig a little bit deeper, it can be an impossible standard to achieve because these guys are getting the best training, some of the best training imaginable. Some Hollywood trainers are actually kind of BS, but they're getting some solid training. They're getting their meals prepped for them, and they're taking steroids, and they're working out like it's their job, because it is. And these guys are seeing this, and they're getting really defeated, and they're also turning to steroids, which is another big trend that is happening. The rise in prevalence of steroids amongst teenagers, guys and girls, but especially guys, if you didn't know this, has been on the rise the past 5-10 years, like crazy. Partially, but not fully, but partially due to TikTok. TikTok has blown up the influencer game for the fitness side of things. It's on Instagram, obviously, too, but you see young guys who are starting to take gear when they're 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, in their early to late teens, before they're done fully going through puberty, and because they feel the need to get as freakishly big as possible. I encourage you, if you've never seen this, to go on TikTok or Instagram and just like search like some of these young gear blasted influencers. They're like 17, 18 years old, and they're huge. But one of the things about doing gear in general, but especially when you're not done going through puberty, is you just don't know and can't know, because it's so individual, how that will affect you developmentally, both mentally and physically, because everyone's different. And so, something that people might not know is not everybody responds to steroids equally. So you can have someone who is a genetic hyper responder. They'll take some gear and they'll work out, really hard. Don't get me wrong. Most of these guys who are super duper jacked, all these guys who are super duper jacked have to put in the hours. So you have to work out, and you have to work out hard to reap the benefits of steroids. But these guys who are younger and taking steroids, some of them respond to it well, in terms of like, the exogenous hormones are in their body, and they just reap the benefits. Their muscles are building back quicker. Their recovery is enhanced. And some of these guys, for whatever reason, just genetically don't respond that well to it. And they might be working out just as hard, and they might not see as much results. And this is true for natural people who work out. You have some people who respond better to the stimulus of working out than other. It's just variance in genetics. And that's just how it goes. And so you're just kind of forced to deal with whatever sort of abilities you've been given at birth, and you just got to make the most of it. But what you don't know is also, with these young guys, is how it's affecting them mentally, and the body dysmorphia that comes along with it. Looking in the mirror and not thinking you look how you do, never thinking you look good enough. I think you'd be surprised that even amongst the most jacked bodybuilders, some of them are still getting surgeries, to like, oh, I've got a little bit of fat right here that, just doesn't come off. And so I'm going to get that removed. And, oh, I've got a little bit of excess skin. I'm going to get that removed. I'm going to get a little Botox here. And even the people who you would think, oh man, this guy's got it all. He's so jacked and looks like like Zeus or something. They just don't see it, and they're getting cosmetic procedures done. And so it's just a slippery slope. And so, with regards to men's health and that sort of thing, the allure of steroids is ever present. But if you're a young guy and you're watching this, just wait. Just wait. You're young. You've got already higher levels of testosterone. Your body already wants to respond to exercise. So, if steroids is something that's on the table for you, just wait until you're like 25, 27. And that might seem like a long time, but you can really reap a lot of benefits in the meantime. And you want to try and max out your natural genetic potential, right? That's something that you want to do. So if you're interested in the sport of bodybuilding, whether it's, to compete or just for fun, for whatever reason, try and max out your genetic potential. I would try and stay away from that stuff in general. The risk is often not worth the reward. You get enlarged intestines, enlarged heart. You can start taking 5, 10, 15, 20 years off your lifespan, depending on how hard you go. There's a lot of bodybuilders that die early because they just want to get it as big as possible, and they're willing to jettison their longevity for the sake of being as deezed as possible. And it's not worth it. It's not worth it. So, my spiel for Men's Health Month is stay off the steroids. If you really want to do them, wait until you're 25, 27. And if you waited that long and you haven't done them, you might just say, yeah, I'm actually good. There's no need for it. Now, that's different, if you've got chronically low testosterone and you're in your 40s and 50s and, you need some testosterone replacement therapy, that sort of thing, certain peptides to help with recovery, especially as you get in your 40s and 50s with advice from your doctor. That's different than taking like Anbar or Tren or whatever, D-ball. So you just gotta watch out for that stuff. So that's my spiel on men's health. Stay away from steroids if you can. I guess I could talk a little bit about body positivity and as it relates to men's health and women's health. I don't know how to say this. I just talked about how some of these bodybuilders or some of these kids are looking in the mirror and they look at themselves and think, oh man, I'm never going to be enough. I don't really think there's nothing wrong with training for aesthetics, for sure. I think that's a slippery slope with regards to vanity, if that becomes the only reason you're training. I think, people say the word functional fitness a lot. I think if you're training to enhance your physical ability in life, I think that's functional training. So that's good. But, on the body positivity front, I think that has been one of the most harmful things to come to the fitness industry is body positivity. Hot take, I know. But I think, unfortunately, while it comes from a really good place, and I'd be happy to have someone on to talk more in depth about this for sure. I think body positivity comes from a place of caring, generally speaking, but I think it has done so much harm to women, especially because I feel like body positivity is more peddled in that direction. And I think it's really dangerous because I think it oftentimes approaches lying and oftentimes lies directly to people. The idea behind body positivity being like, whatever you look like, regardless of your body type, whatever that means. I don't know what body type means. That's kind of like a made up thing. Regardless of whatever your body is, you should just accept it as is and love it as is. And, I think if we just think about your soul, your spirit, the thing that exists inside of your mind. Every human is deserving of love, and everyone should find a way to love themselves. However they go about that, I completely agree and believe in that. And I think it's crucial for overall life satisfaction. That being said, there's no such thing as a perfect human. We all have the capacity to get better. And, when it comes to body positivity, I think it often encourages people who are at risk of chronic illness or disease. I think it often encourages them to do nothing. And I think that's a big problem. With over 70% of the population being overweight, I think that is a way more pressing issue than body positivity is. I think we need to get people healthy overall. And so I think body positivity often works in opposition to getting folks to be healthy. And that is sort of my hot take. I don't actually think it's a hot take. I think that is my pretty accurate take. I've seen books written about body positivity, and I've looked through them, and it's basically just people who are extremely obese and unhealthy lying to themselves and to the people reading the books about the science regarding obesity. And that doesn't mean if you are obese that you're not worth just as much as the next person. You obviously are. All souls are weighted equal. So that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that, those books are lying to you, and you would do well to exercise and eat healthy, eat well, and try not to be obese. And that's easier said than done. And that's how all things are. And if you need help with that, you can reach out to me and I will help you, because I have been successful in helping people escape that. And I would love nothing more than to get you on the path and unlock new experiences for yourself. Because when you have a body that is able to move and able to function optimally, you are able to do more. And when you're able to do more, it's just like a video game. You level up, and then you can do more cool shit. And that's what getting in shape does for you. That's what being a healthy weight does for you. That's what having a healthy relationship with food does for you. And that can be hard for people. And that doesn't mean that people haven't gone through traumatic events that have led them to have an unhealthy relationship with food, or they've had parents or friends or loved ones who shame them for their habits, and that has caused, there's an endless list of reasons why someone could be overweight. There really are. Sometimes people have thyroid issues. That's different. Was it PCOS? If you're female, that can cause it to be challenging for weight to come off. So there are obviously exceptions to the rules. And so if you have those exceptions, guess what? I'm not talking about you. But in general, you should want to strive to be healthy. And I think the body positivity movement, while coming from a good place, has actually caused more people to be unhealthy, and has unfortunately caused more people to double down on their excuses and over rationalize their reasoning for not getting in shape, and to demonize getting in shape and going to the gym and eating healthy. And the concept of calorie restriction can be super triggering for people, and I get that. I understand that is a reality, but it is, just because you are triggered by the phrase of calorie restriction and weight loss doesn't mean that it's not something that you might need to do. And that's tough. How do you get over that? And the answer is just one step at a time. So that's all I have to say about that, I guess. If anyone's listening to this and wants to come on and talk to me more about it, I would be more than willing to have you on and have a discussion about it. I think that could be really positive. Again, I'm not throwing any shade or any hate, far from it. I'm just saying that, we need to confront reality. And I think the body positivity movement has done a lot to keep people out of confronting reality. And, I think the gym is for everybody and every body. So regardless of what sort of fitness you're in, the gym should be a place for you. And I know sometimes people feel like they're going to be judged when they walk into the gym, and you never know. The thing is that's not an unreasonable fear. You could walk into the gym and some stranger who you do not know could look your way and judge you, whether it's because the way you look or how your form is or whatever. That is not an unreasonable thing to fear. I get that. However, the vast majority of people are not paying attention to you at all. At all, zero. In fact, there's going to be some people, myself included, and others, because I talk to people, who, when they see anyone at the gym, they're absolutely thrilled that people are working out, regardless of body type, regardless of what they look like. People see others at the gym and they're like, hell yeah, that's someone who's getting after it. That's someone who's trying to be better. And so you're going to have people who are quietly supporting you and you have no idea. There'll be some people that are quietly judging you, and you might be thinking about that. And so to a certain degree, you're right. And then the vast majority, like 80-85% of people, don't give a shit that you are there and don't care. In fact, they want to avoid talking to you just like you want to avoid talking to them. And they just want to get in and get out just like you do. And so the vast majority of people either don't care or support you. And then it's the small minority of people who are judging you silently. And who cares, because it's silent. And guess what? Odds are, maybe not at the gym, but odds are you probably judge people for something else, whatever it is, because you're a human being, and that's what happens. You judge people as much as you might say that you try not to. You do, and you can't avoid it, and that's just the reality of things. And so, recognize that you do the same, even if it's a different environment, and recognize that that person's human just like you. And we all should try and mitigate judging as much as possible, but recognize that sometimes we'll fail at that. And that sort of segues into just opinions in general. Sometimes you just have to form an opinion. So I think so. Here's what I mean by that. Let me start fresh here. Topic switch. As a human, sometimes people ask me, Jake, what is your opinion on this? And it's my first time hearing about it. And so I'll say, explain. And I'll say, okay, blah, 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 this, blah, 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 that. And I'll listen to what they say. I'll form an opinion and I'll tell them. But sometimes it's on a super complex issue, or sometimes it's on something I know very little about. And so I always try and tell that person or people, if it's something I don't really know about, it's like, you asked for my opinion and you provided me information. And so as soon as someone provides you with new information, you can't help but have an opinion on it, right? It happens automatically. You can't control it. As soon as you get new information, you make a judgment call based off of the life experience that you have. But I think it's important to recognize that is the case. And so I can't help but have opinions on things. But if it's new information and someone asks me their opinion, I can give usually a reasonably articulate answer. But I always preface it by saying, like, I just got this info. I don't actually know what I'm talking about. I only have an opinion because, one, you asked me, and two, I can't help but have one after hearing this new information. But I really don't know anything about it. And so I think being able to recognize when you don't really know what you're talking about is a huge skill set and is a trait that we should all strive to master, is recognizing that I can't help but form an opinion, but I don't really have much information. And so take my opinion with the largest grain of salt imaginable and allow me some room to change my opinion and change my stance on things as new information is acquired, as things unfold. Being able to take a beat, take a pause. I like to talk fast and I like to feel like I know what I'm talking about. And so taking a pause, especially if someone asks me a question, is something that I'm trying to work on personally. So someone asks me something, I just kind of take an inhale, think about it. And also not being afraid to say, I don't really know. I don't really know the answer to that. Oftentimes people will ask me my opinion or how I feel about something, and I really feel quite neutral. And so I'll say, if I had to force an opinion, this is what I feel or this is what I think, but really I don't feel anything. I feel neutral, and I'm only giving you my opinion because you asked. And so don't really take it to heart too much. Now, it's different if I feel like I know what I'm talking about or if I have like an immediate gut reaction. But, especially if you have an immediate gut reaction, I feel like you need to take a beat and really think about what you say before you say it, because it's easy to not do that. So yeah. Let's go ahead and shift topics here a little bit. Again, nothing that I have said was prepared. As soon as I hit record, I literally did not know what it was that I was going to talk about. So I appreciate everyone for hanging on to that. Hopefully I didn't make anyone too upset. And if I did, it was not intentional, and you should probably just get over it. How's that? Just get over it. It's okay. You will be fine. And if you have something to say, let's come on the show and talk about it. Now, what we are going to talk about now, there it is. Hold on. I'm not texting. I'm actually just updating the thing that I have decided we're going to talk about. And we're talking about Marvel, baby. That's right. My favorite thing to talk about. Completely shifting gears. Like couldn't be different. I guess we sort of talked about getting jacked for superhero movies, which again, I'm also not against. I think everyone should get as in shape as they possibly can. And I think if you're playing a superhero, you should get as jacked as possible. I'm just saying, I think it sets some unrealistic expectations for young guys who are now blasting gear because of it. That's the point. Anyways, talking about Marvel. So, coming up December 2026, so 13 months from now, we will have the next Avengers movie, Avengers Doomsday. This will be coming, so it'll be 2026, about 7 years, June, July, August, September, October, November, about 7.5 years after Avengers Endgame. So that's a long ass time. And if you watched Iron Man all the way through Avengers Endgame from 2008 to 2019, that was 11 years, right? But 2008 saw Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk. And then in 2010, we got Iron Man 2. And then 2011, we had Thor and Captain America. And then 2012, we had Avengers. 2013, we had Iron Man 3 and Thor 2. 2014, we had Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Guardians of the Galaxy. 2015, we had Age of Ultron. 2015, we had Ant-Man. 2016 was Civil War. And what else was in 2016? Doctor Strange. And then 2017, we had Spider-Man Homecoming and Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And then I think we also had Thor Ragnarok. And then 2018, we had Black Panther, Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp. And then 2019, we had Captain Marvel and Endgame. Whew. Dude, I got it on lock. My point being is that, 2008 was kind of like the start with Iron Man and Incredible Hulk. But really from 2010 to 2019, that's when you had like the main gauntlet of movies. So in 8 years, you had all those movies. And there was really like a progression. Like if you watch the first 6 movies, starting with Iron Man, ending with Avengers, you really feel like it's all ramping up to the Avengers, right? And then you watch the 6 movies after, and it feels like it's continuing the story. And then once Captain America Civil War comes out, this is phase 3, it's just banger after banger. And the ramp, and at this point, like this is when Marvel was just so popular that everything they put out was just hitting and hitting. Like Captain Marvel, not a bad movie, super generic, kind of like a boring phase 1 movie, but still reasonably enjoyable. Did over $1 billion. It is not $1 billion movie. You watch that and you can be like, yeah, that was cool. That was all right. Some people don't like it. Some people find it middle of the road, like myself. But it did over $1 billion because it was sandwiched between Infinity War and Endgame. Like people were so bought in because there was enough of the story that even the ones that were like so, people were like, I still want to see this because the ones that hit so hard, and the Avengers movies are so good that I want to know what's happening, even if I'm spending, $12 on a movie ticket plus popcorn and the movie's just okay. It was worth it to people. The buy-in was just so real. And then post Endgame, you had the launch of Disney Plus, and people were like, okay, like some people were like, okay, Endgame's over, and I'm sort of tapped out. They put a nice little cherry on top. The fan service was unreal, but I think it's time for this to end. And then COVID hit, and then there were some writer strikes, and that's over the course of a few years. And so what Marvel did that was a bit of a miscalculation was they're like, shit, anything with the Marvel brand is going to hit. So we're just going to put a bunch out there. We're going to hit quantity, and the quality certainly suffered. I mean, they put out more content in phase 4, including TV shows and movies, than they had in like 2 phases. And that was like in 2 years, they had put out like so much content. It was crazy, and it was so much for people to keep track of. Now they've got to have a subscription to Disney Plus and go buy tickets to the movie theater. And, Endgame ended in 2019. And so, they had all these big plans for Disney Plus and their movies, and then COVID hit. And so then you've got people struggling with cash post COVID, because they haven't been working, they've been living off government checks, whatever. And so the budget just isn't really there for them to both have a Disney Plus subscription and go see all these Marvel movies. And because they were doing so much at once, like there were some cracks, like some of the writing wasn't as good. They were putting a lot on their VFX houses, and some of the visual effects were worse than they had been in previous movies, which is unacceptable. I understand that it's not necessarily the director's fault. They're given a deadline and the movie has to come out by this time. And we start VFX at this time. And so you only have X amount of months to do all the VFX work for this movie. And so, most of it, it's not like a technology issue, and it's not a VFX artist issue. It was just you only have this amount of time. And so the quality of both the writing and the visuals sometimes suffered depending on the movie. It was very movie dependent and show dependent, right? And so you've got like a show like She-Hulk. I don't know who watched that. I've watched everything, so I did it so you didn't have to. But is a $200 million show. $200 million for a show like She-Hulk. And there are some incredible VFX in She-Hulk, don't get me wrong. I think it's 9 episodes, but there are also some just like VFX that look straight out of Shrek. And it's tough. And it's like a silly show with like a plot that doesn't really matter. And, it's just, and a lot of them suffered like that. Like the show Secret Invasion was like a show that cost $200 million over 6 episodes, centered around Nick Fury. And it, by the end, they did so many things that would have such a profound impact on the universe at large that they basically have to make it like not canon because it was so bad, everyone hated it. Like everyone who watched it hated it. They spent $200 million on a show that everyone hated. And it was because they introduced some things in the plot that were so consequential that they have to be addressed, but they will never be because they made something so bad that they'll never be able to continue it. No one watched it. And so things happen in that show that are hugely impactful for the universe, but will ultimately make no impact because no one saw it. And they're basically just going to have to ignore those things, even though they happened and should be a big deal, but they won't be. And they shouldn't be because it was terrible. Bad decisions. They should literally put out a statement that says, this show is not canon. We're sorry. Honestly, I would really like that. But all this to say is like the through line of plot, like once they realized they were doing the Infinity Saga and they were building to the Infinity Stones and Thanos, which they realized like at the beginning of phase 2, like Iron Man 3 came out, and then, in Thor 2, they made the Ether an Infinity Stone and teased that it was an Infinity Stone at the end of that movie, which was, again, that came out in like November of 2013. Infinity War came out May of 2018. And so 5 years beforehand, they knew they were building up to some sort of an Infinity Stone plot. And so then in 2014, after Guardians of the Galaxy came out, but before Age of Ultron came out, they released their phase 3 slate. So everything from 2016 to 2019, they released because they knew where they were going. So in 2014, they released their plan for 2016 to 2019. And there was a story that they were building towards. That's what's critical. When they announced phase 4 and then eventually phase 5, they announced a bunch of shit and they called it the multiverse saga, but they didn't really have a plan, or as much of a plan as they did before. Now, there is the caveat where they were building up towards Avengers 5, which would have come out already. I think it would have come out already. Let me see real quick. We're going to figure this out. When was Avengers Kang Dynasty supposed to come out? There it is. It was supposed to come out May 2nd of 2025. So it would have come out this past May, and then was delayed to May of 2026 before it was scrapped and turned into Avengers Doomsday, which is coming out December of 26 now. So we would have already had an Avengers movie at this point. But the actor who was playing Kang, who appeared in season 1 of Loki, which came out, I think, in 2019, maybe 2020, but 2019, was going to be the big bad guy. That actor got in some domestic scandals and was fired. And so that screwed stuff up also. So in all fairness, Disney does have some benefit, especially Marvel. COVID, writer's strike, their big bad villain actor getting in trouble with the law. So, I mean, they've taken some hits that were out of their control. And so credit where credit is due. But then they also went for quantity over quality and had less of a plan for the multiverse saga. One of the things that you might not know, Marvel is notorious because they have deadlines for the movie that sometimes they move these deadlines, like release dates. But when you set a release date, typically they're attempting to hit that. And so sometimes they start filming and they don't have a script finished. That's not to say it hasn't been started. They might have the first and the second act worked out, but maybe not the third act. And they are somewhat notorious for starting production without having the ending of their movie completely worked out. Sometimes this can be a benefit because you can kind of see where the story's going and make some changes. A lot of times, as you can imagine, it works, to their detriment, and it ends up just being a convoluted mess. And it's also challenging, back to the VFX point, if you don't have your script done, you don't necessarily have the ability to send any sort of rough draft to the VFX department. And so now these VFX artists only have a few months once that the scenes have been filled to then fill in the blue screen and all that with the CG. And so it just makes for a rushed project, and it's shown. And so, it's just been really tough for to be a Marvel fan, and just to see the thing that you love go through a rough patch, but hopefully things go well with Avengers Doomsday. Yeah, they did a good job with Thunderbolts. That's the best movie outside of a couple since Endgame. If you haven't seen Thunderbolts, go watch that. Fantastic Four: First Steps was good. It's on Disney Plus. Go watch that. That being said, and this is where this has all been building towards, if you want to catch up on the Marvel train, let's say you've been hit or miss since Endgame, and you're like, what should I watch? Because I'm not watching everything. This is what I am going to do, and you can do a version of this. This is what I am going to do for my Doomsday prep. And so this is everything. If you want, I would start, and I would do all 4 Avengers movies. I would do Avengers. I would do Avengers Age of Ultron. I would also do Captain America Civil War, because that's basically an Avengers movie. I would do Black Widow, because that's when Black Widow takes place. Black Widow is so crazy because Black Widow, the movie, takes place in between when Captain America and Iron Man finish fighting and the last scene of Civil War. So you have a movie, Black Widow, that takes place in between the last 5 minutes of that movie. Crazy. But it is worth, because it introduces the character of Yelena and Red Guardian. And I also think it would allow for a more of a punch when you get to Endgame. So Avengers Age of Ultron, Captain America Civil War, Black Widow, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame. You would then watch Loki Season 1. It's 6 episodes. It is great. There's a couple of nitpicks. We won't talk about it. Loki Season 1. Then I would watch Fantastic Four: First Steps, because without giving too much spoilers for Season 1 Loki, if you haven't watched it, it heavily introduces the concept of the multiverse. And I think if you were to watch Fantastic Four: First Steps right after Loki, it would make sense. Also, because the post-credit scene for Fantastic Four takes place 4 years after that movie ends, it actually will line it up to tease Doomsday closer to the beginning of the catch-up list. So I think it will build hype for Doomsday earlier on in your prep. And so I would watch Fantastic Four: First Steps after Season 1 Loki. Then Shang-Chi, the best solo movie post-Endgame. I wasn't sure if I was going to add this, but You kind of have to. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, 6 episodes, Disney Plus. It deals with the world post blip from Endgame, and it also carries the story of Falcon and Bucky, who are kind of two of the main characters, I would say, post Endgame. So you kind of have to know what's going on with them. It also introduces the character John Walker, who kind of seems to be an important character. Spider-Man Far From Home would be next. You kind of have to watch that because it deals with Spider-Man taking up. It basically deals with him grieving post Endgame over Tony's death. Spoilers. If you haven't seen Endgame, I don't know what's wrong with you. And him kind of coming to his own as an Avenger. And you do have to watch Spider-Man No Way Home after that, because that is a multiverse movie and also has Doctor Strange in it, which leads directly into Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. That movie was a movie that after I watched it initially, I was like, this is amazing. And having watched it multiple times since then, makes me incredibly upset and angry because I like a lot of the things in it, but there's also a couple things that happen that are so egregiously offensive that it's upsetting. After that, you watch Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which is okay. This was another tough one because Chadwick Boseman dies in real life, so they have to kind of figure out how to deal with that in the movie, and that's not a task that I envy them. Unfortunately, they also introduced the character of Riri Williams, who's the worst character. Her show was so bad, it is up there with She-Hulk and Secret Invasion for worst show that they have made ever. It's terrible. But it does introduce Namor and the civilization known as, was it Telokan? Telokan? Which is kind of important. After that, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, you'll see Jonathan Majors as Kang, and that was basically a setup for Avengers Kang Dynasty. So that's kind of a crazy movie because it exists to set up a movie that will never get made, and it is impossible to make now because that actor got fired. So that being said, Ant-Man is going to be in Doomsday, and there's a post-credit scene that happens in that movie that they sort of have to address. They kind of have to address it. So you have to watch that. Then watch Loki Season 2. Incredible. Best finale of any Marvel show. Then The Marvels. It's not good. The post-credit scene is crucial. Deadpool and Wolverine. Hilarious movie. Cool action. It's got the stupidest plot of all time. There's actually no plot. It doesn't make any sense. If you think about it at all, it falls apart immediately. Captain America Brave New World, again, is one of the movies that suffered due to the shifting culture and to the writer's strikes, and is a movie that was reshot a bunch. And there are some cool scenes in it. Sam Wilson is one of the main characters of this universe, and so you kind of have to watch it. Thunderbolts, the best movie since Endgame. I feel confident in saying that. And then Spider-Man Brand New Day, which will come out in July of 26. So, 5-6 months before Doomsday comes out. Apparently it takes place somewhat congruently with Doomsday. But it will feature the Hulk and John Bernthal's Punisher, and is looking to be just an immaculate movie. And yeah, that's the prep. And so I think what I'm going to do when it comes time is, if anyone wants to join, I think you're able to co-watch. I might just go live and stream, and we can watch it together. And so anytime I do prep for these movies, I'll make an announcement and we can watch them together. I think that's what I'm going to do. So you don't have to join in for all of them. I just listed a bajillion things, but that is the most streamlined. There's a bunch of shows that I've thrown out. Some of the movies are thrown out. What's crazy is that Thor, Love and Thunder, like a Thor movie, the first 3 Thor movies are critical to the plot of the universe. Thor in Phase 1, you have to watch it for Avengers to make sense. Thor 2, you have to watch it for Infinity War to make sense. You have to watch Thor Ragnarok for Infinity War to make sense. They were all just like crucial. Thor, Love and Thunder seems to have no consequences for the universe, which is crazy. A bunch of stuff happens, but it all just seems to be nonsense. I don't know how you can make a movie so silly that has no weight whatsoever. Despite a bunch of cosmic crazy things happening, it bears almost no relevance. Unless I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. That is when you can skip for your doomsday prep. That is when you do not need to watch. Yeah. So anyways, that's the doomsday prep. We're 13 months out. I'll probably start. How many things are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Hold on, I have to restart. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. 21 things to watch. And of those 21, 3 are shows that have 6 episodes each. So that's a lot of Marvel content, folks. I told you they've been shitting it out since Endgame, and not all of it is relevant. You could probably trim some of this stuff. I mean, if you don't, you could probably just watch Endgame and not watch Avengers, Age of Ultron, Civil War, Black Widow. You could probably throw all that out, Infinity War, and just start with Endgame. You could probably throw out Falcon and Winter Soldier since you've got Brave New World up there. You could probably throw out Far From Home since you've got No Way Home on there. But yeah, there you have it, folks. Well, hey, that was an hour. I had literally nothing prepared and we talked for an hour, so that was fun. Again, subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's starting to take off a little bit. So any sort of support on there would be more than welcome. And if you ever want to come on and you're listening to this, you're like, hey, Jake said something that I think I want to talk more about or whatever, just reach out and let me know and we'll talk about it. But otherwise, folks, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you soon. Later. What's up, everybody? It's Jake here, Fowler and Friends. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me and all of us over here at Fowler and Friends. So if you could please like, subscribe, comment, do all of that, but definitely subscribe, share the videos with your friends, keep on supporting the channel. Thank you so much. We'll catch you on the next one. Later.